In late 2013, a security camera in Kiev captured something that shouldn't be possible. There was no one at the ATM, no customer, no robber with a crowbar, no one inserting a stolen card. But suddenly, the machine woke up. It began spitting out cash. Thousands of hryvnia, piling up on the ground like worthless paper. A moment later, a man in a dark hood walked into the frame, calmly picked up the pile of money, and walked away. He didn't touch the machine. He didn't type a code. The machine had simply given it to him. This wasn't a glitch. It was the first tremor of an earthquake that was about to shatter the global banking system. We are used to hearing about hackers. We think of stolen credit cards or identity theft. Annoying, but manageable, because this kind of scams can be avoided if you are smart and cautious enough. But the story I'm about to tell you is different. This group, known as Carbanak, didn't want to steal your money. They wanted to steal the bank's money. By the way, that name Carbanak wasn't something they chose for themselves. It was a clue they left behind. When investigators looked at the code used in these attacks, they found a Frankenstein monster. It was a mix of an old Russian virus called Carbanak combined with a new custom backdoor file named Anunak. Researchers smashed the two names together, Carbanak. It sounded like a villain's name, and fittingly, they became the greatest villains the banking world had ever seen. They didn't just break in, they moved in. They watched the employees for months, hunting for clues on exactly who to target. By the end, they had infected the bank's core servers and seized full control. And by the time they were done, they had stolen over $1 billion. And most of the world didn't even know they were there. To understand Carbanak, you have to understand that they were not smash and grab robbers. They were architects. In 2013, after the fall of a malware group called Carbanak, the veterans of that group decided to change the game. They looked at how nation-states, like the US or China, conducted cyber espionage. These spies didn't just hack a computer. They used what's called an APT, an advanced persistent threat. It started with a single email. Maybe it looked like a message from a partner bank, or a complaint from a wealthy client. A bank employee, tired after a long day, clicks the attachment. That was it. The door was open. But here is where Carbanak was different. Most hackers would immediately start downloading files or crashing systems. But Carbanak did nothing. They waited. For weeks, sometimes for months. They used a technique called living off the land. They installed software that allowed them to see what the employees saw. If the employee opened the transfer system, the hackers watched. If the admin typed in a password, the hackers recorded it. They were building a video library of the bank's daily life. They learned the names of the managers. They learned who went to lunch at 12 and who left at 5. Why? Because to rob a bank digitally, you can't just move money. The bank's security systems will flag it. You have to mimic the behavior of the staff. If a transfer usually takes 3 clicks and a specific approval code, the hackers learned to do exactly 3 clicks and use that exact code. They didn't hack the system. They impersonated the people running it. By 2015, the silence broke. Kaspersky Lab released a report that terrified the financial world. Carbanak wasn't just in Russia anymore. They were in the US, Germany, China, Japan. They had compromised over 100 banks. And they had 3 main ways of stealing the money. Each one was more audacious than the last. First, the account inflation. Imagine you have an account with $1,000 in it. The hackers would go into the database and change that number to $10 million. Then they would transfer $9.9 million out of the bank to their own offshore accounts. The user's original $1,000 was still there. The user never complained. The bank didn't notice. Until they did an audit months later and realized the cash was simply gone. Now, if you stole $1 billion, you'd probably retire, right? Go to an island? Enjoy your life because you have enough to do so. Carbanak didn't. They got ambitious. And this is where the story gets bizarre. To steal at this scale, you need a lot of skilled hackers. But you can't just post a job ad on Craigslist saying, "Wanted bank robber," or can you? The group, now operating under the name Fin7, created a front. They built a fake company called Cybersecurity. They gave it a slick website. They listed headquarters in Moscow and Israel. They had an HR department. They recruited real, legitimate security professionals. Young coders, eager for a job, were hired to perform penetration tests on American companies. These employees thought they were the good guys. They were told, "We have a contract with Chipotle. Test their security." So they hacked Chipotle. They broke in, found the holes, and reported back to their boss. But the boss wasn't sending a security report to Chipotle. He was stealing 5 million credit card numbers. These young employees were unwitting accomplices to a global crime syndicate. The level of manipulation here is terrifying. Carbanak had industrialized cybercrime, but every empire leaves a trail. In 2018, the dragnet closed. The FBI, Europol, and Spanish police converged on the city of Alicante, Spain. They weren't looking for a hacker in a basement. They were looking for a wealthy man living in a luxury villa. They found Dennis K., the mastermind. When they raided his home, they found jewelry, €500,000 in cash, and access to 15,000 Bitcoin. Right now, it will be worth over $1 billion. He had been running this entire operation from the comfort of the Mediterranean coast. Simultaneously, the U.S. Department of Justice unsealed indictments against the other leaders, the director, the IT admin. It seemed like a total victory. The head of the snake was cut off. If this were a movie, the credits would roll here. The bad guys are in jail. The banks are safe. But this isn't a movie. Carbanak, or Fin7, didn't die. They just changed shape. After the arrests, the lower-level members, the ones who weren't caught, didn't go home. They took the software, they took the contact lists, and they pivoted. They stopped stealing credit cards and moved into the most destructive trend of the 2020s. Ransomware. They partnered with groups like DarkSide, the same group that shut down the U.S. colonial pipeline. They built tools to kill antivirus software. They even started mailing malicious USB sticks to U.S. companies, disguised as Amazon gift cards, hoping an employee would plug them in. The genius of Carbanak was never about the code. It was about the process. They turned hacking into a business. They created HR departments, supply chains, and training manuals. They proved that you don't need to break the vault door if you can just convince the bank to open the vault for you. And while Dennis K. sits in prison, the code he helped build is still out there, floating in the dark web, waiting for the next open door.